Welcome back to What the Hype, talking about HBO's The Last of Us Season 2. This week, we are going to be discussing Episode 5 of Season 2, titled Feel Her Love. I'm feeling it. Are you guys feeling it? We got Laura, we got Chelsea, we've got Mark. Welcome back, dear sir.
Hello, hello.
Are we feeling the love?
That guy in the woods was.
I was
that's
gonna
for sure.
say, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Ooh.
That's not the kind of love I want to feel.
Nope, I'm good. I pass on that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a season so far of characters finding that they are in over their heads. And you know what? I haven't yet tired of that sort of jaw-dropping reaction of like, oh, crap, that our heroes, namely Ellie, continually express. But this week, I think, delivered more of that and even more than so far up to this season.
For sure. I think it's funny that we see them continuously being like, this is a bad idea, but we got this, right? Then it just never works.
When will they learn? When will they learn? No, we don't got this.
Yeah, acknowledging it's a bad idea, but doing it anyways.
Yeah.
I appreciated the nuance there where at least once during this episode, I think it's before they go in the building, Ellie's like, oh yeah, they got me that one time in the supermarket. And Tina's like, wait, what? Like there are times when Ellie has taken one for the team that Dina did not know about. And so in retrospect, I think Dina, who's smart, would have maybe thought twice about the let's just go in there, we got this kind of thing. If Ellie had been 100% forthcoming, if they're not talking about how many times they've been bitten, what are they talking about together? I'm going to tell you.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, I think it's, I like a lot how they're kind of changing up, like flipping the script a little bit, because, like, this is, it's another example of how this is so different from the game, but it's still so, like, it just feels right. Like, I'm just like, yeah, this all just kind of flows. Like, there's nothing where I'm like, it's like those moments where you're like, did this happen in the game? I don't even know, because it's so close to what...
Yeah,
like it's the same spirit, which is nice.
Right. There's no point where I'm like, that sucks that they did that. Why didn't they do it like it was in the game? Like that's never crossed my mind.
No, and as a matter of fact, I think particularly with this episode, I found myself really having to think hard about, wait, is this how it was done in the game? Or have they adapted this piece? We were talking about that, insofar as it relates to Dina's involvement in this episode and like what did or didn't happen with her, for example, in the game. And I mean, for one, it's just been a while since I played The Last of Us Part 2. But two, I think, again, that it speaks to Mark's point about how the show really is so close to the game in terms of the narrative that it's trying to tell, that I think they're still in sort of like the macro sense telling the same story, even if there are some variations.
Well,
for sure, yeah.
Another thing that comes to mind about this episode is that there's actually been a tremendous realignment with the game in tonight's episode in introducing the spores properly on the TV series. This was something that you're introduced to pretty much in the tutorial for The Last of Us Part 1. Yeah. And every character knows if there's spores in a building, you got to pull out the gas mask. All right, here we go. And, the gas masks, I guess maybe the showrunners are allergic to them. They obscure the actors' pretty faces, but for whatever reason, we got a whole other thing going on in Season 1 with the network, which continues to be very interesting, I think. But now, for Nora's death, lucky Nora, they decided to kind of match it tone for tone and beat for beat on exactly what happens between her and Ellie in the hospital. And so in order to do that, it meant having to devote some time, including a flashback, to this revelation all of a sudden that spores do exist in this world. And I guess based on the making of segment, Craig Mazin thinks is pretty clever by saying, yes, spores exist, and also they've known, they covered it up. Meaning that we lock away this problem, it's not going to bite us in the ass. And if that's the only explanation we get for why spores aren't more well known, I would at least think that some people in Jackson would have encountered them and warned everyone about it. Because what are you doing if not protecting each other, sharing knowledge, et cetera, et cetera? Or maybe it's that spores only exist in this quarantined basement of the hospital.
I think that's the insinuation, because they mentioned that basement was where they quarantined some of the first infected when Outbreak Day happened. So I think the insinuation is that the spores are a localized mutation of those initial infected that have been quarantined to that area.
Also, when was the day zero? Like, when did episode 1? That was 2003.
Well, are we sure? Was there a title card for that? Because
I thought it said, it was definitely during the Bush administration, the first one, because they had his picture up on the wall in Sarah's classroom.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was the question when Outbreak Day was, or when the flashback was?
When in the episode 1, like when?
Oh,
when?
Yes.
Yeah. What year? This 2003. Okay.
Yeah,
so
but I wanted to say we don't know when the flashback was too, but that happens with the wolves in the hospital, so that's way later. Yeah.
I'm talking about more so in episode 1, like of season 1, when you're seeing all that happen. If that's the same year and these things have been down there in a dark, damp, humid place these are like this has been untouched since day 1 of the outbreak. So I think how they made it look was stunning. Like having them walk around and they're just looking around, and you can see like of course Ellie's disgusted by it, but like she's almost like in awe, like you'd be something like in nature. It's not even, because it's just an entire, like all the walls like are so like intricate, and there's entire networks all over them and stuff, and it's terrifying. But like seeing, like being like, hey, let's pull back the curtain. This is what would happen if this thing was just left alone for however many years it was, like decades now.
At least a couple of decades. And seeing the officer who asked, his commanding officer, also his mother, to seal him in there, seeing him really sucked in to the mycelial network down there, having not aged, by the way. He looks, I presume, as
you
young.
Guys, we found the anti-aging cure.
Yeah, just, sell your soul to the fungus. But yeah, seeing him look exactly as he did on the day that he got sealed in there, perfectly preserved to out spores.
That was such a great opening scene for this episode because of how they didn't reveal everything all at once. In fact, it's like the last thing we see before the opening credits, where the person in charge says, "I'm sorry about your son." And that's the first time we've known that Leon is this woman's son. And oh gosh, that was such a gut punch. And then there were a couple other quotes that I just wanted to point out. Well, really just one. They talked about how when they got down into the basement of this hospital to try and clear it out, they didn't find anything there, not even rats, which I feel like was an intentional choice of words for reasons that will hopefully be revealed eventually. And then on a more like higher looking down level, Druckmann, in the making of at the end of the episode, made a point about this woman, Elise Park, making the choice that Joel didn't, the self-sacrifice for the good of the community, whereas obviously Joel did the opposite. But the question I had in response to that point, which is a good point on face value, but my response is this is different, right? Like sacrificing the fireflies, which is a terrible thing, but it's not like he was getting an infected, going to die soon Ellie in return. He was getting a healthy Ellie who is still alive these 5 years later. whereas her son was infected and was going to die no matter what.
Yeah.
So the choice isn't exactly equivalent, but I still like the idea of this being another representation in the show of the sacrifices we make for love, whether for personal or for community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to push back on their sealing efforts. If you could, the stairwell is all good and well, but if you can just pry open an elevator shaft, jump down, and get into B1 against an airborne pathogen, that's just nonsense. I'm sorry, it's not. It's contrived.
Yeah,
and nonsense.
This is why they took spores out of the game, or from the game to season 1. That's why there were no spores, because realistically, if spores spread that easily, there would be no Last of Us. Like, everybody would just be that'd be it.
Gone. None of us would be.
The none of us.
None of us. Yeah. Great alternate TV show.
So, I mean, it makes sense why they're making it more localized. And honestly, I feel like this is cool because it gives it weight. Because it's like, if you see spores now, you're like, oh, this is somewhere where this has been untouched for however, like, it's been sealed off for... it's been like a sewer or something like that, right? Like you can give so much context. In the game, you saw spores all the time, and you're like, okay, wait, whatever.
Yeah,
like, barely you couldn't even see them. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Well, and your character would just auto take out their mask.
Yeah.
You didn't have to think about it.
Yeah, you don't have to push a button for it.
exactly.
Right. But you're right, because it does give it weight. Because we found ourselves, we were sitting there when Ellie and Dina were in there navigating, and we were like, they don't know about the sealed off floor, and if they just stumble into that, like, what indication is there going to be to them before it's too late? And I was like, are they about to kill Dina? Because I don't think I can handle that.
Man.
Thankfully, they didn't do that.
Well, I also want to talk about the other reemergence of infected that we've seen, and part of what makes it harder for me to believe that spores are such an isolated incident, although it makes sense with what's being set up in the show, the reemergence of stalkers and the fact that stalkers exist this far from Jackson. It's sort of convergent evolution that 20 years or however long it's taken before you get, if stalkers aren't what they are in the game, which is a stage between runner and clicker, and if they're in fact something that only appears this far into the cordyceps fungal stages of evolution, as we're being made to believe based on comments in the making of and some other stuff, then it seems like spores would be cropping up everywhere else, because stalkers are cropping up everywhere else.
Yeah. And I would say, like, probably spores need more harsh conditions, or more, not harsh, but more specified
like
conditions.
Untouched, kind of damp.
But, like, even with the stalkers, I feel like it's more like it is a just off mutation, right? It's just like they just so happen to mutate into that way, just how there are like offshoots of different fungus. It's like, yeah, this one just doesn't take away the eyes, right? So it still has all its, because like they're clearly like looking around and like planning and being like, oh, okay, like, so I could see it being like, okay, like, we're not going to give it like as much durability, but like it has more reasoning power, it is faster, it is smarter, like I could see by some weird mutation it just having that offshoot, so they can kind of coexist, like it's not like it's a Pokemon situation, it's more like a I don't know, a Digimon situation.
No, it is a Pokemon situation, but it's all Eevee. We're all just offshoots of Eevee. Yeah. What stone did they come into contact with?
Right.
They are terrifying, though.
Oh,
the camera, the camera work in this episode. Oh man, like it was beautifully done. Like all the horror, like every time I was like, ooh, they're doing the horror thing again, and it's like when the flashlight went on that box in the corner and you see that one, and then when you first see it and it's like crawling backwards down that whatever, like shelf or something, and I was like, they filmed that backwards, but that looks terrifying. Like like seeing somebody just like shimmy down something like that, and like, like it was great. It was so great.
Well, even like the light direction, there was once when, when they intended for us to see the one, and then we look away and we look back, and there's more than one. It was like a trick of the light where you see the one up at the top that we originally saw, and then there was a one that was like crawling on the floor, and then it panned away, and I was like, wait, was there even a third one there? Like, it had me questioning what I was seeing too. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, there were definitely some in the background, and you could only see eyes glinting. Oh, terrible.
And that's another thing to think about too. Like, they're not just like eyes; they're like enhanced eyes, because like they're stalking you. Like they were surrounding them the entire time. Like the whole time they were walking, there was probably just a bubble of them around them, like just a circle of them. Because, like, they don't want to get too close.
That's exactly how it feels in the game.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But yeah. Ooh. So that's really interesting. But regardless of what strict evolutionary path, these are obviously situations that our heroes have to, contend with. This is the world that they're saving. This is the world that Joel failed to save, that deliberately did not save. It was nice to see kind of throughout the course of the episode that things are coming back to Joel. The fingers are being pointed again, and Ellie... We did get to see tiny moments of, I think, Ellie grieving. Still, she picks up a guitar again in this episode, the second week in a row that she honors him, or she can't touch a guitar without thinking of him.
She sings that song Future Days by Pearl Jam, which one was the episode title for episode 1 of this season, and 2 was the song that Joel sang in the Last of Us 2 game. I actually just spun that record on my player downstairs last week.
How did you feel while doing that?
Oh, it was great. I felt really good about it.
Yeah, you cried a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, the funny thing about that song is it is anachronistic with the TV show. I was not expecting it to show up on the TV show because it came out in 2013. Which is 10 years before. It's nice to know that Pearl Jam survived the cordyceps apocalypse and still were putting out records in the early first decade of the pandemic, and that Joel would have heard that song and loved it enough to pass on to Ellie.
These 1%ers, Pearl Jam and the 1%ers.
Oh, they represent everything that's wrong with the music industry post-apocalypse. Yeah. No, but it's nice. I mean, if a song works, the song works. I don't.
Yeah, I think they acknowledged in the first episode of this season's podcast that anachronism.
But let's talk about kind of Ellie's trajectory through this episode. But first, let's hear from our sponsors. That'll be a good way to cut the first video, I think.
There you go. That's perfect.
All infected
Thanks so
talk.
much. Yeah. No, your timing was perfect.
And we're back. And we're talking about Ellie and Dina's journey from the theater to the hospital. And I don't know, because we asked the question last week, is Dina going to stay with Ellie the entire journey, given what's been revealed about Dina? And what might happen that will, cause Dina to maybe take on a more reconnaissance mission, continue hanging out by the radio, listening for incoming transmissions, which it turns out she's really good at. And it seems like it was satisfying to see the characters ask that question. You're pregnant. Should we be moving forward? Well, Dina tells her backstory, which is interesting. We'll talk about it. But then she's like, so I guess what I'm saying is I'll do what you want me to. It passes the buck back to Ellie, and these children are deciding their own fate. But it's kind of nice to see, I guess, unexpected is what I want to say, that, Dina kind of just said, yeah, we're going to do this together. We're really going to go all the way. And how quickly then getting in over their head meant they were both doomed.
Yeah. It almost seems like Dina has accepted, like, I'm probably gonna die. Me and Ellie are probably both gonna die, so go big or go home? She seems really resigned. I mean, she even says, don't worry about it, because if I die, it's my own fault.
Yeah, she pre-absolves Ellie of her death. Who does that?
Yeah, I feel like it kind of shows just how much Dina loves her, because it's like if I'm just going to be like, well, I know I'm probably going to die, but I don't want you to do this. Like, if I don't come with you, you're going to try to do this by yourself and you're going to die. Or I can come with you and you may have a little bit better chance of surviving, you know, and at least I get to spend time with you before you die. You know, like...
It's kind of viewing every moment together as precious, which is sentimental.
Which is, I mean, you'd have to be like that in a world like that, right? You'd have to enjoy every moment you could in a world like Last of Us.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, when Dina talks about what happened to her, and specifically what happened to her mom and sister, it is kind of just, you know, the harrowing tale of her finally getting a little bit of freedom to herself to go outside, only to find that the horrors of the world have let themselves in. It's kind of sad, but what she takes away from it is some kind of morality that what happened, that whatever Joel did doesn't, it means that he didn't deserve to die the way he did. She turns it into like a rallying cry for Ellie, which kind of justifies Ellie's future violence or revenge cycle. And I'm not sure all the points connected for me. What do you guys think?
Well, she acknowledged that Abby and friends probably had a reason to kill Joel. She doesn't know what it is, but what she does know is that it was really brutal and cruel, and they made Ellie sit there and watch. And Joel and Ellie didn't deserve that specifically, the extent of the murder. Like, it could have been something where Abby discovers Joel is Joel, hits him with the bullet when he's not looking, and then they leave. Like, it could have been that simple. And at least there would have been a modicum of compassion in that, because it's not torture. And instead they resorted to torture. And that's what has made this such a necessary vendetta for Ellie. We don't know the whole story behind how Ellie got to this point, because, I mean, it's revealed later in this episode that she did know what Joel did. We don't know the context of that yet, and we haven't yet squared the circle between how Ellie went from, I hate you for doing this thing to me, to, I'm going to take revenge for your death. And so I'm really interested in that journey, which it seems like we're going to get a lot of maybe in the next episode. But the whole point being, Joel didn't deserve torture, because nobody deserves torture. But that's, I mean, we talked about human cruelty in The Last of Us, and we see Ellie perpetuating that cycle in this episode, as well as the Seraphites and everybody perpetuating that cycle in this episode.
Yeah, turns out if you do it in some freaky deaky way while referencing an ominous she or her, it's still torture. It still feels like torture anyway.
Yeah, definitely still is. I mean, again, it's all about that cycle that Chelsea mentioned. That's really what keeps getting hammered in again and again, is just the cycle of violence just perpetuates. Dina talks about it. Nora talks about it. Ellie talks about it. I mean, basically everyone in this story is on their own vengeance journey in one way or another.
So do we think, I mean, we kind of agree, or can agree, that Ellie and Dina were cooked if Jesse hadn't shown up when he did?
Oh, yeah.
They were dead.
Once they started peeling back the cage material, I was, oh man.
Yeah, and Ellie was 2 seconds away from getting her arms ripped out. Like, it was not going to be pretty in like 5 more seconds.
I'm so sorry that Dina only packed 4 bullets. I would have expected better from her.
And the thing is, like,
she ran out.
Right, and the thing is, like, I like that they're putting Ellie in situations where they're acknowledging that, like, yeah, you're immune, but you're not super strong. Right? You're not even that particularly good of a fighter. Like, you're a survivor, so you can do whatever you need to do to survive, but you're not you're not John Wick, right? You're not like going around and like they're really showing like what she is capable of. So when you see her go in these situations, you're like, I kind of know what this character is capable of, and I'm terrified because I know they don't have like a secret anime power up. right? Like her being immune isn't a, like in this episode specifically is probably the only time we're gonna get a situation where it's like, good thing I'm immune, so I can walk in this, untouched fungus hive for like, and just like look awesome in red light while I'm coming to
The red light was very on point.
It was
episode.
pretty nice. It was appropriate.
Yeah.
It was appropriate.
But again, Ellie is hot shit when her opponents are weak, beaten down, infected, minutes from their own death, even without Ellie. Whenever Ellie has really been in a situation where she had to defend or protect anyone that she loved, she has failed and failed miserably. And it's, I think there's probably a deeper lesson here, but I'm not upset. Like, I like seeing Ellie fail because I think that when she succeeds in the horrible ways that she succeeds, we kind of get more insight into, again, that it's a choice that she's making to kind of be so cruel. And to see her kind of even take out probably her frustrations for the times that she failed in those times when she's succeeding. It's an interesting... I just appreciate every time Ellie gets her ass handed to her. I don't...
Yeah. And I like too that like they're kind of showing that this other side, because they kind of hinted that like in season 1, remember when they were in the gas station and there was that trapped infected and she like stabbed it, and she kind of liked it, and it was like, and I was like, that's kind of weird, like I wonder what they're doing with that. And it's like, oh, like she kind of has like a dark side just like everybody does, but they're not making it some kind of like, and she blacked out and she woke up and everybody was dead, right? It's not a heroic thing. It's not like a Hulk, right? Where like the Hulk's still kind of cool, but he's just has anger issues. It's like, no, like she is making it like when she like lets that part of her out, it's not like I'm letting this out for good, like I'm letting this out to hurt someone.
The switch flip is subtle. And even just the shaking of our expectations when she admits to Nora that she knows what Joel did, that Joel killed every single one of them, including the one person that could have made a cure. And Nora also is fully honest as well, because her wording, the writing is very good here. She says, could have made a cure from you. So that implies that Ellie would not have survived that process, which was straight up told to us, but we don't know that Ellie knows all of that. And Ellie's like, I know. And it's like, wait a minute. Okay. So that, as Craig Mazin says in the making of as well, completely recontextualizes kind of all of Ellie's choices that she's doing and going on this revenge arc.
Didn't she also add, I don't care?
Yeah. Well,
To that.
Do we think she cares? Or does she not care?
Maybe she doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to get some answers to the timeline.
Yeah.
Of like Joel and Ellie next episode, because it seems like next episode's going to be the flashback episode we've been waiting for. But yeah, it really makes me wonder, was there any level of reconciliation between those characters before he died?
I mean, if there was, it had to have happened that one evening after the New Year's dance, and by the next morning, having had enough of a conversation to set truly, remarkably everything right in order for Ellie to know everything and do everything. A lot is riding on the potential flashback episode, because based on playing through the game, we're overdue for several flashbacks at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. There's going to be a lot of flashbacks.
Yeah, so, I think it'll be an interesting thing. This show kind of, I think all of our assessments of season 1 was it doesn't miss. The show doesn't miss. Every choice made a lot of sense in retrospect. And even without retrospect, a lot of choices we just freaking loved. Season 2, I don't know that I can say the same thing at this point. With pacing, with some of the reveals, the way the beats are hitting, but it was never going to be 1-to-1 anyway, or anything close to it, because they're splitting the season. So now we kind of have to question. I think I'll be questioning probably the layout of season 2 when season 2 is over, but probably questioning the layout of season 2 when season 3 is over, depending on where we get to, because the way that these story bits are falling, like I said, like, I think it would have been nice to see how some of the resolution in Ellie's feelings, let's say, let's throw darts and pick just one subcategory of Ellie and Joel's relationship. It's like how she feels about what he did at the hospital. Okay, that seems relevant to the story you're now telling where she's hunting down the wolves. Don't need to show me anything at the, museum or anything else, any of the other famous flashbacks. Just show me that bit so that we can continue to feel level with the character as she goes and does these horrible things. And the absence of that means that we're left holding the bag going, what the hell did our character, who we're supposed to be cheering for, or at least aghast in, hate watching, is doing things inexplicable. It sounds like all this stuff happened off screen. I never like being at a disadvantage as an audience member, and this is not a show that has done that to us in the past. The show has gone above and beyond at making sure we're right with the characters, even more so than the other characters that they're around are with them. And now we're
What's
at a
really
disadvantage.
interesting about how they ended this episode was that the flashback, the little bit of a flashback that we got in this episode, not in the coming up next, happens during Ellie torturing Nora for the information about where Abby is. So
she's going to her happy place. I think she's seeing God.
Yeah,
God
well, I also think it's the creators telling us that they're going to give us like a way to make us feel okay with what Ellie is, or that's the wrong wording because I don't feel okay about what Ellie is doing.
No. I don't think we're supposed to
understand what Ellie is doing and why she's doing it in that moment. And
when she tortures Nora, she sees God, who looks a lot like Pedro Pascal, and that's how she gets close to his memory, I guess, is by killing an innocent woman.
Listen, if you want to get me to join a cult, start one where Pedro Pascal is God, and I will join that cult.
But it isn't dissimilar from that, right? This idea that I at least think that after she gets done torturing Nora and climbs her way out of that same unsecured elevator shaft, or maybe she finds another open vent right in the vent system that wasn't secured all these years, she finds her way out of the hospital. I bet she sleeps great that night. I think we're meant to believe that she sleeps great that night because the flashback is of her waking up having slept really well, and she sees Joel for the first time, and, we haven't seen him on screen since he's died. So I think the implication is she's sleeping well tonight, and that is what unsettles me about Ellie.
I would think we were, because, I think next episode, if it's going to be, the flashback episode, I don't know if it's going to be a pure, and I could be wrong, but I don't know if it's, with only, because you have 2 left, right? We have 2 episodes left. With 2 episodes left, I don't know if it's going to be a 100% flashback episode. I think we get, mostly, the meat of it is going to be flashbacks, but I'd say we get a lot of, what is happening, progressing the story. So I would say maybe we get, I don't know, flashbacks to reality of her torturing Nora, maybe what the other team members are doing, kind of seeing what's the moving parts. I could see that. Also, this is happening in front of a chained door in the deepest, darkest part of this place. So I'm I've been waiting for you all season, man. Let's
I don't want to see
make
it
happen. I can't wait. I can't wait. I really hope.
Yeah. I mean, that does feel like a very fitting, can I call it a character introduction? Presumably I think we're getting in the finale.
Yeah, I think they're setting up. I think the end of next episode is going to be her finishing the job at hand and then trying to escape, not being able to go back up the elevator shaft, and shooting the lock on the door in front of her and forcing her open and going through there, because I don't really and again, I could be wrong. It could be me just really wanting to see my boy. But having everything take place in front of a double door with like chains around it and a very visible lock is like the universal please shoot this to move forward.
Well, it's not her character to meet, is it?
No, but they've changed a lot. You know, like I'm trying to think about what they'll give us for the season, like this season's like thing, you know? Like I'm trying to think about what this season's big like bloater is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be, I mean, the stalkers are great set dressing in the meantime, but I don't know about that, but the show seems very, very dedicated to just focusing on Ellie to a detriment. We aren't seeing the Seattle crew at all. There was 3 seconds of Manny the one episode when they first arrived, and now a little bit of Nora when Ellie's right in front of her. Apparently they're all talking on their radios, but we don't see any of that or hear any of that. So given that razor sharp focus, I think it's at least plausible what you're suggesting regarding Ellie in the basement and the lock and the double doors and the thing that may be lurking beyond. Because to cut sideways and see who's on the other side of that door, maybe another survivor of some kind, hopefully wearing a freaking mask. You know, then I don't know how they're going to show it or how we're going to eventually come back here this same night.
Yeah.
There's a reason Nora was protecting Ellie or Abby, and I think she was a lot closer than people realize.
I think for season 3, I think that's going to be the Abby season, where like we're seeing these days again, just like in the game, but from I think they're gonna do like a what was it, like concurrent timeline stories, where it's like you're doing the same thing over. Like I could see them doing that for season 3.
Yeah,
We need more Abby in this season so that we have a buy-in to that scene. Like, why would people care? Like, I can see the posters for season 3 of The Last of Us already. Abby on a giant billboard. Who cares? We don't know this character because season 2 hasn't yet really given us a reason why we should care for her.
I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Ellie kills the, you know, her list? She has her list. Does she get through her list until Abby, and then the farm stuff happens, and then she goes after Abby? Is that the timeline?
Well, Abby shows up at the you-know-where
Yeah.
after all of her friends are dead.
Yes. So I guess what could happen is next season is we're getting those days, but we're also getting Ellie. Like it's kind of like a dual story season. You know what I mean? Where like you'll have like Chicago, or not Chicago, Seattle day 1, and it's like this is Abby doing what she was doing that day, and then the other half of that narrative of that story is Ellie continuing hunting these people down, and then have some kind of like it's very interesting how they're doing this, because the pacing is a very interesting choice. Like if you would ask me where would you stop season 1, I would not say after Nora, you know, because she in 2 episodes a lot's gonna have to happen if they're gonna make this and pretty much anywhere else.
Especially if one of those episodes is devoted on catching us up on a lot of those flashbacks. As we speculate, and I think that's probably exactly right.
Well, and we also, you know, at this point, Jesse's back, and he also mentions that Tommy is with him, and we know that there's more to come there. So it's like, are we going to get that far in the story before the season wraps? And again, like she's got some more people to kill. She's got her little Arya Stark list, and she hasn't really made a dent in it yet. So, yeah. And I mean, if we're gonna spend at least a portion of next week's episode on flashbacks, that leaves pretty limited screen time to get through everything that we think they're gonna try to get through. I do agree on the pacing, especially over the course of the last 2 episodes, which have been great episodes for the record. really enjoyed them. But I really feel the lack of Abby in these. I think this season would benefit from going back and forth a little more than they do.
Yeah.
They could primarily focus on Ellie still, but I think especially for people who didn't play the game, people who are coming into the story brand new, for people to really have that buy-in with Abby, and for people to like want to tune in to the next season if it's going to be primarily centered around her. They do need that. I feel like the game did bounce back and forth more.
Yeah, it did.
Am I misremembering that?
No, I mean, that's why so many flashbacks were scattered throughout the game, and so many, that's why they had to, that's why like Seattle Day 1, Seattle Day 2, Seattle Day 3 are titled as such, because that way you can see that stamp and you're like, okay, I know what's happening with this character now, because there's so many different story threads going on, like, that you're just seeing happen randomly. It's like, oh, here's something that happened at this time. Now it's a flashback. Now this is Abby, but it's this date with Abby, and then this is, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't hate that this is where the season could potentially end in terms of roughly where it is in the story. It's just kind of complicated because Last of Us 2 is such a non-linear story that, like, it was way easier for season 1 because Last of Us 1 is a pretty open and shut story. Yeah, it has a very solid timeline. This, because they're trying to really in Last of Us 2, they're really trying to dive into Abby as a character and really like have you understand her and all this stuff and get attached to these people. So like when people die, whether it's one of Abby's friends or one of, and if either team dies, you kind of feel it. Like they're not just like fodder, right? It's not like you're just watching like Mission Impossible where people just dropping left and right. It's like, no, like every time somebody dies, you feel it. So I feel like them taking their time is better for us because we could get more Last of Us. Because if they can kind of play fast and loose with how much they're gonna focus on something and make a whole season about it, like I'm fine with that. Like I'm fine with us getting like one or two people off that list a season. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have to spend time with those people for it to really hit.
Mm-hmm.
And who do we know that they've spent a lot of time with is Abby and the rest of their friends. Mm-hmm. So I think the problem too, and Mark, that's well illustrated, that there is a good side, like a very obvious positive side and benefit to the show taking its time as it is, which is, more Last of Us. But I think that not showing Abby or the problem with The Last of Us Part 2 being adapted the way that it is now is just that The Last of Us Part 2 sprawling is well balanced. Mm-hmm. And if you pull some of that out, like it's non-linear AF, but it's also well balanced and or perfectly balanced exactly as it is, the game. So when you're not doing things that the game did, and you're also not doing the things the game did, how the game did them, you're upsetting the apple cart. You're dropping your apples, oranges, bananas everywhere, because it's like there's a brilliance to how the game is measuring and weighing things. So I just, all I'm asking for, more Abby before the end of the season.
Yeah,
something worthwhile.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have a big Abby thing at the end, right? Like I don't think there's any way that Abby doesn't show up before the season's over, right. But I think that because it's a different medium, like Neil Druckmann, when he made Last of Us 1, and there was a very clear, like, this is an experience, right? Like, you've played games before, but this is a very specific kind of game where I'm like, there's a lot of cinematography, right? Like, there's a lot of that feel where you feel like you are playing through a movie. So adapting that into a show, I don't want to say it's easy, because it wasn't, but it was a lot more straightforward. But for this one, like, I do like the very, like, okay, I have to piece together the story kind, and I get, because everything's non-sequential. I really like that in a story. But for a episodic hour-long episode thing versus like a game where you can be a lot more experimental with your time, like where you're spending time, where you're like demanding players focus their time, right? Because it's like if you want a player to focus on something for an amount of time, you just make that segment or that level longer, right? Versus a show, it's like you have to like dedicate people to like this just has to be a longer scene now, like and it may not be as involved, so it may just not hit the same. Like the amount, like I don't remember the game being as scary as the scene we just watched. And like I was controlling a character, which should have been way more scary, but like seeing how they made them move and how they have to like amp everything up to make it meet like how those visceral feelings made you feel. It's just there's a lot like I have a lot of respect for how they're doing this, but I agree. I feel like some more Abby. Like I get what they're trying to do. Like I get the like here's Abby. Okay, now you see the team for a while, and then maybe Abby comes back at the end, and then you go to season 2. But like I do miss seeing Abby because like I think we're used to knowing what's happening. We're like, hey, right now isn't Abby doing this thing in her story, right? Like, so where's she at? Like,
well, it's just there was some effort made, at least maybe it was lip service in one of the making ofs, but to showcase how Ellie and Abby are similar people. That can't happen if Abby's MIA. Like, there's been less Abby since Joel's death. There's been less Abby than Joel.
yeah,
and that's surprising because one of them's still alive and walking around.
I like Ellie's choice too, because like when she walked up and she saw that pipe, I was like, that's an oddly golf-shaped pipe I see over there.
It did look like a golf-shaped pipe. Yeah.
Gave her the old Jolin one.
The old yep.
Whoa. Listen, that has wounded me. We're gonna need to take a break.
Too soon.
We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about the additional scenes we didn't yet talk about, and I guess the themes, including cruelty, that we're getting a lot of this season. After these sponsors, and we're back. Let's shift gears slightly from the Abby Ellie sequence to talking about the Seraphites. And, I like the way that the show had initially set them up as victims. And now we're watching them kind of disembowel people and string them up and kind of showing themselves to be, even though they don't get on a radio, they are as much or more of a threat than the wolves. And in fact, if I had to choose whether I would be gunned down by a wolf or taken into captivity from a Seraphite, you better believe I'm choosing the wolves. So good on the show for making me put my guard down about these crazy whistlers.
Yeah, these Seraphites are so different than the ones we initially saw. Because if those were like peaceful people who are fleeing war and they were leaning on their faith, these are the opposite side of that coin, which are fanatics who've gone into radicalism. And I mean, it's terrifying to watch is what it is. And I love Dina's reaction to hearing the whistle for the first time, which is like, what the F was that?
Yep. I love that, Eric, you called them whistlers, and that's my name for them now. Just whistlers. Cool. I don't know.
But yeah, so getting to kind of what the whistlers want, apparently they're just holed up in a park. I guess what I intuited was that there's like a truce line, that's kind of where that's where the territory probably ends for the WLF, or they just know not to go in the park.
I have some questions, because like, one, how big is that park? Because if you have like a militarized zone where you have like what were those like ground tank things they were driving around in that? Remember that big transport thing they were driving when they showed them marching? I'm like, you have that and a bunch of guns and explosives and all that stuff, and you can surround them on all sides. Like, so I'm wondering how. Right? I'm wondering how big is this park, or like what negotiations had to take place to make it so they just don't go in there.
Yeah.
Right?
So I will say Seattle as a city does have a lot of like green spaces and some pretty large parks. And I think the implication with this one was that it had really overgrown over the years. But I think, perhaps in the thick of the woods, I think the wolves would be at a disadvantage against the Seraphites, and that's why they don't go in. But it's kind of a nice little trick for the viewer and for Ellie and company, because they're assuming the wolves don't want to come in because of infected. But that's not actually why they don't want to come in. And, Ellie and company get to see exactly why after the fact. So yeah, I think it's that the Seraphites are just much more adept at using the surroundings of wilderness to their advantage, and that's why they don't want to go in.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on how much it's overgrown, like you said, because like if it's to the point where like the edge of the forest just kind of bleeds into the woods now, and like the woods are just the edges of, just the forest that was already there. I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that, because like also I'm like, if it is a contained park, right? It's like they could just burn it, like if they could just burn the park, right? But if it's like the forest, like if they try that, they would just go retreat backwards, So like I feel like what you're saying is probably the best like theory for it or explanation for it, is it's just overgrown to the point where like it is a forest, like it is just straight up a forest where like it is comparable to a city in size because it's just part of the woods and stuff like that, wilderness in general, and that would be terrifying. I would not want to go in there either.
We kind of we see the Seraphites kind of thrive in that sort of like urban jungle environment in the game. Makes sense that they would show them taking up residence, something like this that gives them cover.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, I kudos to pretty much every character in this show, because everyone has an excellent sense of direction. Because like they're like running around, it's look, it's the hospital, the place, like, and like sure, some of it's just like you may have stumbled in on it, but it's like they're always right where they need to be. Like they're always like, they'll be on streets, and I'm like, you guys are talking awfully loud to be sneaking around in broad daylight in a active war zone, pretty much. Like,
yeah, and they established that the WLF are watching this street specifically where the lights are. So
yeah. I mean,
but
I get that.
Voices carry.
Yeah, in a regular street, like if it was a street where like people were walking, like in our time, like in our timeline, if sure, you're not going to hear somebody from a street away, but like in a completely silent city, like
no, I was agreeing with you.
That's
earlier.
that's
yeah, no, absolutely, you can't. Yeah,
every time I get so tense, like every time I'm like, oh, but you're talking real loud, like I don't want, because I would leave it to this show to have somebody be like, hey, there's somebody over there. And I'm like, oh, the one time. You guys were just talking.
Just like in the game. Like in the game, there are points where you have to be stealthy. And if you're not, that's going to be what happens. Somebody's going to hear you and you're going to get swarmed.
Yeah, there's a million and one reasons not to talk anything out loud, pretty much, and to only whisper. Like,
right.
But yeah, again with the Seraphites too, there are still bits of them or groups of them being killed, crimes of aggression by the WLF. I'm speaking, of course, the bodies that Ellie and Dina first come across when leaving the theater. And beneath one of these murals, which are so prevalent in the game, of this person, the prophet, and the words, feel her love. Somebody killed a bunch of Seraphites, dumped their bodies against the wall, and wrote in graffiti, feel this, bitch. So you can tell that there's these tensions between these groups of people, and it's really, I guess they're setting the scene well for that kind of conflict to come to a head. But right now you have, essentially in this episode where the WLF spots Jesse, Ellie, and Dina, and they're like three outsiders heavily armed. You're like, they have no concept of what that means for them, for Seattle at all. Like, they know they're not Seraphites, but like, who are these people?
Yeah, and that's that's one thing too where I was like, I get them kind of being like, oh, the Seraphites don't have radio, so whatever. But I'm like, Raiders still exist, right? So like, you still wouldn't just be talking about stuff on your radio. Like the fact that Dina got that much information from listening to them, it's like, guys, you guys are just chilling. Like, you think that no one's out there that's gonna do anything? Like, y'all don't have any enemies.
That's kind of another theme of this season is the overconfidence of everybody involved. And Dina and Ellie point that out as they're walking down that street. She's talking about how brazenly, like unashamedly, they're having these conversations all day long on the radios because they don't think anybody's listening. And then Ellie calls the WLF overconfident. And then Dina's like, well, we're kind of being reckless too. And of course, they all continue to proceed doing what they're doing. And even when Ellie has a reason to maybe finally pull back and be a little bit more discerning with her path forward, she takes the impulsive, reckless option when she comes across the hospital when she's by herself, even though she's told Jesse and Dina that she's going to meet them at the theater. And I guess and if she eventually does, the conversation is going to be like, well, I'm here now. I said I would be back. I just didn't say when. I didn't say be right away. I had something else that popped up.
Let me just do this thing real quick.
Everybody's just reckless and overconfident, and it's to everyone's detriment.
And to your point, I feel like that's kind of the point of the story they're trying to tell here is it's like, look, like, the fact that we saw so many terrible things with the Seraphites and so many terrible things with WLF, and like we're seeing that even the main characters, all of them are capable of horrible things. It's like there's not a clear bad guy, right? It's not like these people are bad, but these people are worse, but these people are really bad. It's like, no, it's like you've seen everyone do terrible things. So it's like, it's very like, it feels uncomfortable, you know, because people are used to being like, that thing's the bad thing. Like, there it is. Like, there's the evil fictional, you know, like what's G.I. Joe, the Snake Eyes and
Cobra.
Yeah, Cobra. Like, oh, there's Cobra. They're clearly like
the Legion of Doom. The uniform of the yeah.
It's like like even in Spider-Verse at one point where they saw Miguel, and it's like, I'm not a bad guy. And it's like, well, you kind of look like a bad guy. And it's like, yeah, you're right, you kind of do. And it's like, that's how 80s villains were. It's like, oh, there's the bad guy. There it is. But like, there's none of those in this show. Like, you can't just be like, oh, they're just objectively bad, you know? Because like, they're showing that the main characters are capable of similar things. You know,
everybody keeps logical. Everybody keeps drawing their lines in different places. Like, Abby and team drew their line at Joel killing all the Fireflies and the surgeon in the hospital. And Ellie draws the line at killing children or at torturing Joel. And now we have the Seraphites who are hanging people and cutting out their entrails. And like, everybody has these different lines and everybody's like, oh, they did that thing and it's terrible. And they continue to do their terrible thing too. And the bar keeps, what is it? The Overton window. It keeps getting pushed further and further and further.
Yeah,
such a good point.
As a sense of paying for their crimes.
Yeah,
awful.
And it's so funny too because like they're making it so like I love when stories make you intentionally make you disoriented. You know, like you're kind of like, I don't really know who to root for right now. You know, I don't really like. I know who I'm supposed to be rooting for, and I know the character that I've spent the most time with. But if we did have a story where we spent time with all of these people equally and saw all the people that their lives touched, right, and all their relationships, and like, oh, you have kids, okay, let's see that. Like, we see all of that, and we were presented with that all at all the same time. It would be so hard to be like, I'm rooting for this person to not get killed by that person, I guess. But then you're like, but then that person's going to die and his kid's birthday's coming up, man. That's going to be terrible. You know, like, it's great storytelling, you know, but it's so hard to just be like, oh yeah, bad guy, clear. Like, here they are, you know, like, because the Seraphites and the WLF, I'm like, I don't really know which one is worse. Like, I don't, like, sure, I know which one I would rather be killed by, but like, in terms of just being expediting the process, I don't want to get gutted, you know. But like, if you're like, hey, like, if you were reading about this in like a textbook, you'd be like, I don't know who the bad guy in this war is, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of two sides of the same coin. To be honest, it's kind of a pick your poison circumstance. But yeah, I'm in agreement. I think I would rather take the quick death with the WLF.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't seem as creative as the Seraphites in ways to kill you, so.
No, except Abby.
Well, yeah, there's that.
She's an overachiever.
So if we are zeroing in on kind of what these people have all had to do to survive has made them who they are, what do we expect for the future of these characters? I know we really are unmoored in not knowing exactly what scenes will be included, but it seems reasonable that there will be a rendezvous with Tommy, Jesse, Ellie, Dina. And was there a line in tonight's episode where Jesse was like, then we can talk about going back to Jackson? So they're going to try and kind of just be like, okay, let's go back. So it's interesting that they were able to have their cake and eat it too with Tommy and Jesse. In the game, Tommy leaves before Ellie. And it's really wonderful that they were able to have him be this protector of Jackson, be on the right side with his wife, hold the council meeting where Ellie has to, you know, fight to argue to get men to go out after her, and then leave, only to find out that Jesse and Tommy probably feel guilty about that, and so they head there after them. That's cool. That's clever, because they still get to meet up, but at least then it's like all above board, and like the reckless part on Tommy's behalf was feeling like he still has to protect Ellie and save her now, and not any other BS from his past like it is in the game. So I like that, you know, if he's betrayed Maria, it's because he felt he had to honor his brother's sacrifice.
Yeah, I mean, it's Ellie's his niece.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's like, she's the last part of my brother that is still here. So I gotta go get her. And that really fits for the way they've established his character in the show.
And the thing is, like, they've been doing a good job showing how much of Joel we see through Ellie. They've done such a good job of showing, like, mirrors of, like, oh yeah, Joel taught her how to play guitar. So every time you see her play guitar, right, you're reminded of, like, I wonder what the scene was like where Joel taught her that, right? Or, like, you know, just how she knows how to survive. Like, a lot of like how she does, like how she plans, like a lot of her, like, okay, listen to me, do this, do that, understand, cool, go. And that's it. Like, that's such a Joel thing, right? Yeah. Like, it's such a direct, like, do this, cool. So, like, imagine Tommy seeing Ellie and being like, this is the last piece of my brother I have, because I see him in her, right? Like, oh, like, that's, like, of course he would go to Seattle, right? Like,
well, man. I know there's so much more that could be said, but, you know, I also know it's, you know, coming up on midnight for some of us here on the East Coast. So wanted to just float out here. Any final thoughts, any predictions, ideas of what we're going to see over the last couple of episodes coming up?
I wanted to point out one quote that I just really enjoyed. When Dina kind of flippantly throws out, "That's why I love you," to Ellie. And Ellie tries to respond, and Dina gives the Han Solo, "I know." So I love the unintentional Star Wars moment.
Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah. And then something to point out, I was looking at the episode list, and of course we don't have titles for the last two episodes, but next episode is the first one not written solely by Craig Mazin. It's written by Mazin along with Neil Druckmann and Hallie Gross, who was a co-writer on Last of Us Part 2. And that's true for both of the last two episodes. Ooh. And Neil Druckmann himself is directing episode 6.
Yo, this is gonna
Neil
hurt.
Druckmann is directing next episode.
Yes.
Oh no! Oh no! This is gonna.
Here
Everybody,
comes
make
the
sure.
trauma.
Make sure you're in a good place. Make sure to hydrate. You know.
You guys, what if we actually get not just all the Ellie and Joel backstories, but also the Abby backstory stuff?
That would make
Oh
sense.
my! That. How does it? Does it? Do they have releases for times, or no? Of how long the episode is?
Oh,
Not where I'm looking, but I don't think that's...
Yeah, I just check Wiki usually, but...
Okay.
But no, you would think, I mean, I think they could do what I just said, what if they did, in like 80 minutes, maybe. The thing is, we know we see Eugene at one point, because Joe Pantoliano is in the trailer. So there's going to be some pretty extensive backstories focused on Jackson, but maybe what we're not expecting and what I'm hoping Hallie Gross is here to do is more Abby stuff. Maybe that could get things a little bit more to an even footing, as we were talking about earlier, in the season's lack of Abby. Maybe it's spending episode 6 and having some of the Abby stuff in there as well could put us more on an even footing ground for the finale.
Yeah, it is. I will agree. It is weird that we haven't seen anything about what Abby's doing at all, right?
Because she could have taken ill on the way back from Jackson.
We haven't seen hide nor hair of her.
Literally since episode 2.
If I hadn't played the game, right, and I didn't know anything about The Last of Us, and I was just watching this, I would think that Abby's like dead or something.
Or not a main character.
Because we haven't seen her at all. Usually in a story, if somebody does something like kill a main character, you will see them randomly throughout the story, right? Like you'll see. So that way, when the main character is like, oh, they're in, Nevada or something, or they're in like Rio, it's like, okay, cool. We know that once our character gets there, it's showtime. But like. She's a ghost. We have no idea where she is, what she's doing right now, if I was just watching the show.
I think maybe that's to a detriment that I hope that will be maybe reversed. Or, again, there's so much goodwill coming off of season 1, a masterpiece. There is, that I'm really not super worried, but I'm a little like...
I think it depends on how they end it. Like, because the pacing, like, it's a lot easier to go Last of Us 1... Last of Us Season 1 and see that it's not to discredit them when I say that the story's almost copy and pasted. I mean that with respect in terms of like capturing the soul of the story. Like it is the same. Like if I talk to somebody about Last of Us and I only played the game and they watched the season 1, we understand the same story for the most part, right? Like there are some very little differences, but like no one got a worse experience. They were just slightly different. But with season 2, because we don't have a direct season 2 equals game 2, the pacing is so strange because we don't I don't know how to rate this yet because I don't know the finished, right? Like I don't know.
Like I said, it could take till the end of season 3 to really be
exactly.
Hey, this is... But there's so much more from The Last of Us Part 2 to still be adapted. We only have 2 episodes left of this season, and there's still so much more in so many different areas with so many different characters, so many different people, concepts, everything. And so I think right now where I'm staring at it is like the loss of what hasn't yet been adapted, or the goodie bag, let's say, of what has not yet made it to the TV show. I like what the TV show is doing now, but I can't pretend that I wouldn't still like to start seeing some of these toys from the goodie bag.
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Glad we're on similar footing here, but the show continues to be very well done. Very well directed. The infected are scary. Like you said, this episode was scary, Mark. Like, I really agree with that.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I think it was this, because, like, even the bloater that we saw in season 1 looked cool. Like, when it came out of the ground, it looked cool. But I was like, this is like, action movie cool. Like, that's something I could have seen in a Marvel movie in terms of, like, scariness. Like, I'm not going like, oh my God, what's that? Like, in a Marvel movie. But, like, in this episode, I'm like, this is a horror movie. Like, I would have seen this in a theater watching a horror movie, right? Like something, like just something, like even the way they were moving was so unsettling. Like, it just top marks. Top marks. I loved it. It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I loved the merging of choreography and stunts
Mm-hmm.
that they had to do with the stalkers. They just so perfectly captured the experience
Mm-hmm.
of what it felt like to be playing a game where those things were pursuing you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you walked into an abandoned building, you basically just had to expect that you were being followed by stalkers. And you might not necessarily have enough ammo to kill them. So you had to be clever about how you were going to get around them, which is why if you were smart in the game, you never got yourself into the kind of situation that Ellie and Dina did in this episode.
And like, and I love, like, talking about how well they were depicted. I love that they really captured that sense of dread when like the when you feel it in the pit of your stomach, where like they shine the light and it's like, okay, one, they could handle one, I guess they're pretty competent, and it's like two, ooh, three, ooh, then it's like a whole warehouse and you just feel like the floor drop and you're like, oh no, like that's, yeah, like, oh, like,
Yeah, you're like, we're dead.
yeah, like honestly, if I didn't play the game and I was just watching the show, I would have thought Dina was dead. Like, as soon as they see a whole warehouse of them and like they say all that and they kiss and they separate, like I'd have been like, I think one of them could die right here if I didn't know, you know, all of that.
Man, the sheer hubris, though, you got to assume that the WLF avoid that building for a reason.
Right?
It was not a massive strategic oversight on their part. I think Ellie and Dina now have to acknowledge that the WLF, like, they avoid the park. Why do they avoid the park? Oh, I see, because there's killer Seraphites out there. They avoid this building. Why? There's some infected that not a lot of people know a lot about in there. So.
And Ellie does call that out to her credit when Dina's like, yeah, there's just this building that we can use to pass through. And Ellie's like, don't you think it's kind of weird that there's a building like right near their outpost and they don't do anything with it?
Yeah. Again, like, not to sound like a broken record, but like, why wouldn't you burn it? Like, right? Like, I don't mean to say that in every zombie apocalypse I would just be an arsonist. That is not the case. But I'm just saying, like, you don't have to go in the building. The zombies are in there. Obviously, in any apocalypse, if there is a building full of zombies or infected or whatever, that building's going up. Like, if it's been years and no one's inhabiting them, like, why would you just leave? Like, what if one of them get out? Right? Like, I'm just wondering, why leave that building alone? Like, I get you don't want to go in it, but like, I would imagine doing away with them would work better, I guess. I don't know. Like,
Sure.
like, I feel like it seems like I feel like it seems risky to just have that building there, even if you have it guarded. It's like, if a group of raiders attack the city and then they go in that building, and like, if one of those things get out and are just running around now, it's like, that's not good. Like,
Yeah.
also, we don't know what happens when these things bite people. Like, if these things bite people, do
Like
they
they
start
are
at the
special?
beginning? Do they start at the beginning of the evolutionary tree, or do they go straight to being a stalker?
Yeah.
That's a fairly
that's so
concerning
interesting.
observation. Yeah.
Like,
well,
oof.
and the more people look, if the building is still up, to your point, Mark, more people can go in, more people can get infected. There's going to be more infected in that building.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean,
Well,
it really seems like they should treat it like a nuclear site, like Chernobyl, for example. Like, there should be like signage up being like, biohazard, infected area, do not pass.
Unless they're using them for weapons. Like, what if they're like, yeah, just keep the building there, and when we need one, we just go in, scoop one out, and just set one free in a enemy camp or something, right? Like that's honestly the only reason why I would think, because if like we don't got to go in there, and if anybody tries to sneak in this very obvious trap we're setting, then they get infected, and we get more infected in this little cage, like.
That's interesting. Well, follow us for more questions about The Last of Us Season 2. But seriously, no, this was, I really enjoyed our discussion for episode 5. And Mark,
for sure.
Again. Laura, please tell the listeners where they can continue to find us if they're not subscribed.
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and where else? Sorry, I'm blanking right now. Instagram,
TikTok?
YouTube. Yeah. Thank you. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch at What the Hype Podcast. We are What the Hype Show on X, formerly known as Twitter. If you're still over there, we're really not. So you'll probably see more from us on our other socials. But we are doing these reactions live right after new episodes of The Last of Us air on Sunday nights. We are hopping on at 10:30 p.m. Eastern to react to these every week. And if you're not able to join us live, we do release portions of this episode on YouTube, so you can catch it after the fact.
And Chelsea, do you have a podcast update yet for your Cinescope, or are we saving that?
Yeah. So I am a podcaster separate from this podcast. I have a podcast called the Cinescope Podcast, which is a movie discussion show all about the movies we love and why we love them. And this Friday, this past week, I started a new series on that podcast called I'm in This Movie, which is kind of like autobiography meets film discussion. And I'm really excited about it. And there'll be another episode this next week. And I'd love for you to go check it out.
Definitely.
Can't wait to listen.
All right. Well, everyone, same time next week.
Yep. Same time, same place.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be 100% more dinosaurs in the next episode. I know they were peppering them in the background of some of the earlier episodes this season, but I think next episode's going to finally be that payoff. So,
yeah,
looking forward to that. Thank you all for listening. That is The Hype on HBO's The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5. Feel her love. I feel it. Feel it.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
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 All right.